You're listening to Local Conversations. My name is Jason Hugg with Berks Weekly, and today we have Kelly Barber. Kelly, tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do in the community.
I am a ballet teacher. I have been a professional dancer, and I recently actually stepped down as Berks Ballet Theater's artistic director. So I had that role for 17 seasons, which is kind of hard to believe. But I've worked in the city, in the community, with BBT as a teacher and director. And so I am moving on from that post, but I'm still a ballet teacher and still planning on pursuing that and hopefully some other interests that I have as well.
So tell me about your love for dance and how you got started.
I honestly don't remember asking my mother to put me in dance classes. She just put me in dance classes. I was 4. And I went to what is now the Yoakum, but it was the Wyomissing Institute of Fine Arts back in the early 80s. So I was in a beginner ballet class, and I have vague memories of it, but I did it for 1 year, and then that was it. So I don't really know why, but that was the end of it. And then I revisited dance a few years later, taking just tap and jazz at the time. So, and then that kind of pushed me a little bit into ballet, and then I had found Carol Ennis's studio, which she was the founding director of Berks Ballet Theatre. It just kind of snowballed. So I went from tap and jazz to then seeing the older dancers do ballet, and I was like, oh, I want to do that, and then getting involved in the Nutcracker and her ballet company. And so it was never one of those things where I felt like, oh, how do I word this? It just felt meant to be. It wasn't like, oh, let me choose between, do I want to do dance, sports, music? It was like, no, this is what I'm doing. It was just kind of meant to be. That was it. So
was there anything else you were doing at the time? Or like you said, it just kind of fell into place?
That was my main activity through school. I tried softball once, but lasted a season, and that was it. It was not for me. But yeah, it felt natural. It felt like what I was supposed to do. And I decided to pursue, I was on the fence about pursuing it professionally. So when I was in high school, I was looking into physical therapy because I thought I wanted to be a physical therapist. And then kind of last minute, right before my senior year of high school, even early senior year, I was like, nope, I don't want to do that. I think I am going to pursue a dance career. Because that was, pursuing a ballet career is scary because it's hit or miss. I mean, there's a million dancers and only maybe 5 jobs or, something like that. So it was scary, but my parents supported me. And so I didn't go to college right away. And I pursued dance. And then I did get a job with a ballet company, which was nice. So
go into detail a little bit about going into the professional end and what that's like.
Yeah. I went to countless auditions, which were never the most fun. I mean, I remember going to cattle call auditions in New York, and then I would go and travel to certain ballet companies to audition. And then as it happened, I had family living in Annapolis, Maryland, or outside of Annapolis. Both of my female cousins, they were younger than me, but they took ballet lessons. And I had never heard of Ballet Theatre of Annapolis, but there was this small professional company there, and my 2 cousins danced at the school. And so one day, my aunt contacts my mom and was like, Kelly should come down and audition for this company. I'd never heard of it. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And I went down to Annapolis and auditioned for this company and got a contract for the following season.
Oh, wow.
And the nice thing was it was a really small company, so we were all really close-knit, and I got to dance a lot. So that was a positive thing, because had I gotten a job in a really large ballet company of 50 dancers or whatever, I probably wouldn't have gotten to do as much as I did. So I got to dance a lot. I was a soloist within the company. It was a good experience for me. I really enjoyed being there.
Is there a way for you to kind of just describe what it takes to do what you do on a professional level?
Yeah, I mean, it is a full-time job. I think that's a little misconception sometimes of people, because I remember we would get asked sometimes by people well, what's your real job, or what do you do? Is this just part-time? And it was like, no, we would take class every day, and we would rehearse all day, and we would perform, and we would go do lecture demos at schools, and we were always out and about. And so it was a full-time job. And you are an athlete, so it's keeping in shape. It's not just about dancing. My friend and I, we would, we would work out and we would, bike and be on a treadmill and we would, keep in shape and lift weights and, 'cause you have to be in shape, keep up your cardio. So it is a very full-time job. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm, going to take a ballet class tonight. Like it was all day, at 5 days a week, I would say. And, yeah, it was a lot.
How does that work around your personal life and everything's happening?
The thing is, what I notice with, and I think a lot of people realize this with ballet companies too, like dancers, you're with the same people every day, and you're so close knit and you go through, these experiences and performances. So it becomes like a family. So, my closest friends were my dance friends. Was I able to meet some people out in the community? Yeah. But it kind of becomes all consuming.
Okay.
So, but you're there because you love it. You're there because it's what you want to do. So it all works out. Yeah. And
that seems very typical to a lot of performing arts.
Yeah.
How do you go from, dancing professionally to then teaching and more or less what you do now?
Yeah. So I was there for a few years and then I came back to Pennsylvania. And then I was still dancing and still auditioning because I was like, I still want to try to get into another company after I had left the one in Annapolis. And then I essentially went back to Berks Ballet Theatre because I still wanted to dance. It wasn't necessarily like, I'm here, I want to teach, because that wasn't on my radar. I'm a dancer. So I was back at BBT and I was dancing. Carol had me perform, which was great. And she started out by giving me like private lessons, meaning if I remember there was a little girl who was a figure skater and she called the studio and wanted a private ballet lesson to help her figure skating. So Carol gave that to me. She was like, hey, do you want to teach this hour private lesson once a week? So I was like, okay, sure. So that was kind of the start of it. And then kind of as years went on, she would start to give me more classes and I wasn't really working with the company other than dancing. She was letting me teach. Then I had a moment where I left altogether and I went and became a massage therapist, which is a whole other story.
Oh.
So yeah. So I had a moment where I was like, okay, let me, put this whole dance thing aside and let me see if I want to do something else. And I did go to school for massage therapy, worked as a massage therapist for a couple years, but then ended up missing the whole ballet world. And so then when I was starting to get to the point of not performing as much anymore, that's when Carol had me teach more. And then it was right around the time when we were moving into the Goggle Works that I was getting close to I was associate director, and then she passed on artistic director to me. So it was kind of
like.
So
what did you do in that role?
So as artistic director, you're basically, keeping the company running. You're in charge of the season. You're in charge of basically the artistic aspect of the dancers, teaching them, training them, coaching them in the ballets. Yeah, it was a job that I resisted initially because I was like, I don't know if I want that responsibility or if I want to do that role. But after I got the position and then after a few years went by, then it was like, I like doing this. This is what I like to do. Yeah, it was just kind of just keeping Berks Ballet Theatre alive. And, my mission was always to keep the integrity of what Carol had created. So it was important to me to keep, that old BBT vibe going, even though we were moving forward and changes and always
What did that mean for you?
I mean, it was great. It meant a lot to me. This was a company growing up that I danced with that was so special to me. So the fact that I could kind of take it from Carol, infuse my own things into it,
right.
But also, I would know how she did things, or she would, this choreography, or how she would do this ballet. And so I would always make sure it had kind of that old BBT history kind of a part of it, kind of still going. So, so that was important for me.
Well, what were some of the highlights from your time there?
Oh, wow. So
it could be, and just in general, it doesn't have to be just as artistic director. It could be even your professional, dancing before that.
Yeah, I mean, professional career, just the fact that I got to do it. A lot of dancers either are maybe too scared to pursue it, or they get injured or whatever. I mean, it's tough. So, I'm just happy that I got to dance professionally. I remember when I danced in Annapolis, we had a performance where they had brought in principal dancers from American Ballet Theatre, and they were kind of the leads in our ballet. We did Swan Lake. So that was kind of cool that I got to dance on stage with these, stars, so to speak, in ballet. That was a lot of fun, and I liked that. And then even just, as a director and with BBT, just everything that we accomplished. Our dancers got to perform, when we were a member of this organization called Regional Dance America at the time, and we got to perform all over the Northeast. We got to go to Montreal. We got to take the dancers and have them perform outside of Berks County, which was really nice. It was fun. The Montreal trip was great because we were out of the country, and this was a big deal. And I think just, one thing I always felt really happy about and proud of was, the collaborations that we did in the city. We got to collaborate with Reading Symphony Orchestra and the Reading Pops and, just doing things with other arts organizations within the community. I was always proud of that.
How was it working with other organizations?
It was good. It was great. The last thing that I kind of did with Reading Symphony Orchestra was we had done Peter and the Wolf. So their former executive director, David Gross, he and I had worked together for actually years because we started talking pre-COVID, and then our plans got kind of shelved. But then he and I worked together on doing Peter and the Wolf for elementary school kids. So they were all, bussed into the Santander Performing Arts Center, and it was so much fun. It was fantastic. The kids loved it, but it was really special to have these two, organizations have this long history within Reading, for us to come together and do this. It was really, really a wonderful moment. It's a lot of fun. You're working with kids. That's another thing that's always a really wonderful accomplishment. Like, at Berks Ballet and at some other, schools and companies that I now work with, you're working with kids and teenagers, but you're expecting them to do, high quality work and professional quality work. So, a lot is demanded on them, but, they're still kids and they're still teenagers. So there's, it's fun and
they're still balancing their day-to-day life and school and other things too.
Exactly. So, I know at BBT it was, long rehearsals and just, polishing up all of our performances that we were doing. And then, theater time was always a lot of fun. Backstage was fun, keeping all the little kids together, especially at Nutcracker, was a little crazy, but we did it. But it's the same everywhere because I do teach other places too now. And, it kind of wherever I go, it's like, this is all kind of the same. Kids are kind of like, this is how they're all doing it. And I think wherever I go, I'll adapt very well. It's easy to adapt because it's what I know. But I like working with kids. I like working, with all ages. And
I was going to say that kind of brings up another thing, that there are a lot of different ages that are kind of doing different things too. Can I talk a little bit about that experience?
My expertise is teaching probably age like 8 to 18.
Okay.
I don't really teach the real little ones. I think it takes a special person, I think, to do the real, like the toddlers and the little ones. But yeah, for me, teaching's just super rewarding because, you're watching these kids, train for this common goal. And, when you witness something, them getting a correction or it clicks in their mind, like, oh yeah, if I do this, that step is gonna work. Things like that are super rewarding for me, which is why I love teaching so much. It's interesting. It's always something new. Especially when you're working with kids, so it's never a dull moment.
And as your role as artistic director, you've put on a lot of different things yourself and had to create a lot of different things. Can you talk a little about the creative process behind what you've done? Yeah,
the creative process that's an interesting thing. When we would do the Nutcracker, or when I was a part of it doing Nutcracker, we would do different things every season, but it was essentially like, this is the ballet. So it was kind of like, we have this ballet, but we would infuse new things every year. As far as brand new things, the last ballet I did with BBT, our spring ballet that we did, that was a process because it was an old ballet, a ballet that BBT had done many times, but decades ago. So for me to kind of bring it out of the archives and dust it off and, put a 2024 spin on it, you know what I mean? So a little bit more now as opposed to, 100 years ago. That was interesting. But yeah, the creative process is fun because it's not just the dancing, it's costumes, it's the sets, it's lighting, it's all of that, which it's a lot of work, but when you put it all together and then there it is, it's like, ooh, that was really worth it.
Is there a process that goes through for you, or is it just kind of creative ideas as they happen? Or
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's more about, like, if I'm doing a ballet or putting a ballet together, it definitely starts with just the choreography. I mean, that's what I would do, the choreography and getting all that together. And then, then I would start to think about, okay, the sets, the costumes would probably come next because that's a big, important thing. And then sets, and usually for me, the last thing I think about is lighting. I'm not really, a lighting designer, so I'm kind of like, whoever the lighting designer would be that I'm working with, it's like, just to make it look pretty, make it work, because I don't have expertise in really in-depth lighting. But the choreography, the costumes, they're the two big things that are the top of the list when you're starting something.
What's some advice that you give to professional dancers or people looking to get into this career field?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to really want it. You have to really go for it, because again, it's a tough career to get into just because there's so many amazing dancers out in the world, and a company might only be hiring 1 or 2 dancers per year. And what's hard now is not so much when I was younger, but now a lot of big professional companies have a really good professional school attached, and there might be like a second company, so a lot of ballet companies, they will take from their school and their second companies. So, that's, in my mind, if you want to a young person, if you want to be a professional dancer, you want to get your foot into that door, like into that school, to work your way up, because you have a better chance. But yeah, you just have to really love it. You have to really want it, because it's a hard job. But you also have to remember too that the career doesn't last forever, a performing career.
Right.
There could be injuries. So, it's something to always be prepared for, and, maybe have a backup plan just in case, because I have witnessed dancers who, were maybe going to school for it or wanting to pursue it, and then that really bad injury comes, and it's like, well, now what do I do?
Right.
So it's probably important to have maybe a thought in your mind, like, okay, if I can't do this, what else would I want to do?
So if you could talk a little bit about some of the experiences from teaching and maybe some of your students, what they've gone on to do, or...
Yeah, I mean, so I've had a lot of students that have gone on to definitely dance in college, and then there's been girls that I've taught that have gone on to dance professionally. Maybe not necessarily ballet, but, musical theater, or there's a dancer right now that I taught her when I started teaching her maybe at 8, 9 years old, and she lives in Texas, and she has created her own company. So she's the director of her own small little professional company, and she's getting that up and running, which is really cool to look at, because I'm like, I taught you when you were 9, like I met you, you were a little kid, and now look what you're doing. So it's really rewarding to see some of my former students that are, pursuing it in college or, whatever. And then even the dancers that don't end up pursuing it, they all end up going off to do, amazing things. And,
Right, yeah.
So it's always fun. Like for me, it's fun to watch their journeys and just see what they're doing. And
it must be rewarding. I mean, whether they're doing something in dance or related, or even just in general, it must be rewarding to see what they're doing and going on to do bigger and better things.
Yeah, and even there's a former student I had who is now teaching, and that wasn't initially something she thought she would do, but now she has gotten into teaching ballet. So, it's just, and then it'll be, it's always fun when they ask for advice or whatever. So it's just kind of nice that, something maybe they went through when they were a kid, if they're, it's still with them as adults and they can still kind of appreciate it. I think that's really great.
So what's the next steps for you? What are you looking to do in the future?
So like I said, I stepped down from my post at Berks Ballet Theatre, and still teaching. I teach at 2 different schools right now. Going into the fall, I'm at Wayne Ballet down in Wayne, and then I just joined the staff of a school called Ballet 180. So I'm going to be their artistic coordinator for their student company.
Oh, okay.
So those are the 2 schools that I'll be at in the fall. But then I also have some other, pursuits that I think I want to kind of follow. My job at BBT was a lot. It was all consuming. I mean, I would sometimes work 7 days a week. So kind of excited to have Sundays off, and because I won't be working Sundays. And then, maybe having some extra time in my schedule, hopefully, to just maybe do some things that I didn't have time for. But I plan on still teaching ballet and still being a part of, the 2 schools that I'll be at this year. They both do Nutcracker. They both, or one of them attends, a dance festival in Philly that I, went to with BBT. So there's still things that I'm going to be doing that are familiar to me just with some other schools. But it's exciting because I get to work with new people. I get to meet new dancers, and I think that's going to be a fun thing for me just to reach as many people as I can,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm grateful that I've had, the long career that I've had, and I've also gotten to do so many different, or be a part of so many different aspects of dance, right? So I didn't just dance professionally, but I got to do that. But then I've also gotten to choreograph and teach and put ballets together. And, so I've gotten to do so many different things in the dance world. So, I'm just grateful for that, and grateful that I've had a good support system. My parents were never those people that were like, you have to go to college or you have to get,
right.
You have to do this. They were kind of like, pursue what you want to pursue. We'll back you, and if it doesn't work. And like I said, I had that moment in my 20s where I was like, okay, we're going to put that whole dance thing aside and I'm going to go be a massage therapist, which was great. But then after a couple years, I was like, oh, I miss ballet. So that's how it got me back. But I'm just happy. I'm happy that I've had, a great career thus far. And I've gotten to, I'm proud of what I did with Berks Ballet in Reading. And, I'm just excited to see kind of what's next and see where this takes me.
Do you have any advice for, I think I already asked you if you had any advice for, students or things, but other people who might be in what you're more doing now as artistic director, and for anyone else who might be getting into that, if you have any advice for them.
I mean, one thing that I know for me that I kind of grasped it later on as I was working as artistic director, like, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to, talk to other people in the dance community or in the dance world. Because I remember when I first took on the role from Carol, it was kind of like, I almost had that mindset like, okay, well, I should know what to do. And I'm just going to, do it. And here we go.
Right.
But now even as, time has gone on, like, don't be afraid to like reach out to other people. Like, hey, well, what are you doing as artistic director, or what's your company doing? And that whole, I think that's just the collaboration and, sharing ideas with other people. Like, it's not I don't think it's just a solitary thing where it's like, well, here I am doing my, my job.
But it sounds like that does happen.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sharing and support.
Yeah. And I think that's important because the dance world's really small. I feel like if you know one person, you know them all, and you know this person and they know that person. And so I think the connections you can make as a person in a dance career, it's really important. I've made a lot of good connections this summer with schools that I taught at this summer, and maybe I had never taught there before. So that was great this summer because I met a lot of new people, made some connections both in Pennsylvania and out of Pennsylvania, but we're kind of all in the same boat and we're all, doing our thing in ballet. So it's just nice to know there's a really supportive community. So that would be my advice. Like, if you're new to directing or even, just, working with a ballet company or something, I would say, don't be afraid to reach out to the dance community because everyone's there to help you. And I've learned that now later, I feel like, in my career. Because I feel like when I was younger, it was like, oh, I'm going to do this. But there's a lot to learn, I think, from other people, which is really important.
Well, so you've been in the field for a long time now and everything. What has changed, in your opinion?
In the dance world?
The dance world, yeah.
Ooh. I mean, it's evolved. I mean, I think about when I danced in the 90s when I was a teenager, and, I think it's more high caliber now. It's different. The stakes are higher. Dancers are doing more, and it's just, it's evolved. I mean, it's interesting because I think, social media plays a big part in it.
Yeah,
that didn't exist when I was a teenager. So we didn't have social media where we could, go on TikTok or Instagram or whatever and look at dancers dancing or our peers. We didn't have that, so that I think is a big deal for teenage dancers because they have everything at their disposal, and they can look at a principal dancer at ABT on their phone, or they can look at someone from Texas or whatever, So I think that has kind of maybe changed a little bit of the mindset of dancing in this day and age.
Has that made things better or worse, in your opinion?
I mean, I think it's half and half. I think it's good, and I think it could maybe be a little tough. You know, I mean, you know, it's not hard for a young dancer to, you know, see a video of another dancer, maybe her age, and then say, well, I'm not as good as her, or I'm not as good as him. So maybe the comparison a little bit. And again, I didn't have that experience growing up. So you know, it was different. So I think it's good, it's bad. I mean, I think it's like a 50-50.
Yeah.
But the dance world it's always evolving, it's always changing. But yet it's still the same, you know, it kind of,
Yeah, right.
it's still ballet and, you know, and beautiful and all that, but it's
Anything new that's come out of any of this, or
like just in the dance world?
well, yeah, just in general.
I mean, the one thing that I noticed, which is great, is with professional ballet companies, there's more women directors and choreographers that are being recognized.
Yeah.
You know, that wasn't too much of a thing, you know, even 20 years ago. It was most artistic directors and choreographers were men. So now you're seeing more and more females, especially choreographers, which is nice because, you know, they should be recognized. But so it's not just, you know, the man that is the director or the choreographer. I mean, so I think you're seeing that more and more than you would maybe, like I said, 20 years ago or so, which is good. But yeah, I mean, dancers are stronger than maybe they were before. I mean, just, you know, maybe the amount of classes that everyone's taking, the drive. I mean, you know, it has evolved to be, you know, that artistic sport, basicks
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Great. It's been a great conversation, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on the show here. Look forward to see what you're doing in the future.
Yeah.
And maybe we'll have you back on. You can talk about that.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.